The Newsround on Off the Ball.
With Gillette. Put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
This is News Talk.
Yeah, well, it's not the All-Ireland final we were predicting, but Mayo Tyrone it is. The much talked about Tyrone ambush came to pass. We'll chat to Billy Joe Padden and Colm Kavanagh just after 8 o'clock. On the Premier League front, 10-man Chelsea make off with a point at Anfield. Manchester United very average again. Arsenal's start of the season goes from bad to worse. Pat Nevin is going to join us this hour. We have Dan McDonnell, who is heading for Portugal. Republic of Ireland in action, of course, on Wednesday night. Stephen Hunt is going to join us as well, talking everything from playing against Ronaldo to how Ireland are going to go. And that is not to mention a brilliant 24 hours in Tokyo. Gold medal number 6 for Jason Smith. He is undefeated in championship racing. And a silver medal this morning for 19-year-old Nicole Turner in the pool. We're going to chat to Niamh Talon here in studio, and Cliona Foley will join us as well, who is over in Tokyo at the moment. That is at 8 o'clock. 53106, the text number. We are at Off the Ball on Twitter. Richie McCormack, evening to you, Richie.
How are you, Joe?
And Johnny Ward here in studio. Hello, sir.
How are you, Joe?
Transfer deadline day tomorrow. I see the news has just broken. Daniel James of Manchester United has gone to Leeds United. So deal done, confirmed. The price, €28 million with some add-ons. Personal terms agreed a few minutes ago. Medical tomorrow morning. Official announcement coming soon. Fabrizio Romano has just tweeted that. Seems like a fairly reliable source. Daniel James going to Leeds United from Manchester United for €28 million. Ronaldo, what are you making of all this Ronaldo business? I have to say, really not sure.
Yeah, we're talking about it off air. I still think, as I was saying on Saturday, there's a part of me that, you become a kid again when Ronaldo signing for Manchester United. The aforementioned Dan McDonnell, he turns 39 tomorrow. And
painful one.
We were recording a podcast earlier and he got all morbid all of a sudden. He was like, 40 next year, it's going to be a big, milestone and all that. And it was like early on a Monday morning. I just wasn't in the mood for the conversation at all, particularly because it was true. But then when you see Ronaldo signing for Manchester United, it kind of brings you back in time. And it was remarkable that he played with Solskjaer so long. Like, he was actually with Solskjaer for quite a good while at Man United. I see your reservations on it, Joe, but I think in terms of just the fact that it's Ronaldo, the fact that I think he should sort of lift those young players around him. I think they will be a little bit starstruck. I mean, it is Ronaldo. He's a once in a, he's one of the best footballers that we've ever seen. And he's not overly expensive in terms of, I think they'll probably just make their money back in terms of whatever jersey sales and all that, and his they'll help the brand. But it'll be interesting. Solskjaer says he's going to play, but he can't play 90 minutes all the time. And Ken Early's piece was interesting today. He in the Irish Times, he spoke about a stat that Ronaldo's off the ball stuff is really, as in off the ball chasing and winning the ball back, is really, really poor. And that is interesting because that's not going to improve at this stage. Cavani's conversely is not, but Cavani looks like he might be heading out the exit door.
Yeah, 560 sterling a week for Ronaldo. I mean, they'll make that back. It'll be electric. I mean, that's the thing you would say, first of all. Old Trafford will be electric. There'll be a scamper for tickets. The young players will be in awe. He'll set an unbelievably professional example, and so there may be a legacy there, a bit like Ibrahimovic. They all talk about Ibrahimovic and the impact he made there. He's obviously an unbelievable player. He still is 36. I know he's telling everyone he's a 27-year-old, but he's 36 and he is playing like not the most mobile player at the moment. It just strikes as a real last-minute job where they heard he was available. Suddenly he's going to City. Ferguson seems to get involved. Like, we can't let him go to City. Let's just get him. They pitch him to the Glazers. It was said yesterday in the Sunday Times as he's like Tom Brady. In language they can almost understand, and they know what Tom Brady did for them. But just looking at United yesterday, what jumped out, United were so average yesterday. Like, I think it's now worrying. I think I've gone from thinking United might challenge to thinking they're now going to finish fourth, and comfortably so at the moment, just based on Southampton and yesterday. What you take from yesterday is Pogba as a 2, when it's not Kante there at the Euros. They just can't control the game. They were overrun completely, him and Fred. So that means you're moving Pogba further up the pitch. So you now have a situation where Ronaldo is definitely in. So behind him, there's now a backlog of Cavani, who I think is the fall guy. So I think Cavani just doesn't play anymore. Greenwood goes from being, and he scored the goal and looks really good. Greenwood now has to go from getting minutes at number 9 to, well, here's the question for you. Shunted out maybe to the right-hand side, but only maybe, because you've got to fit in Pogba. So is Pogba in a fight with Rashford over on the left of the 3? You definitely have Fernandes in. That's not to mention the 80 million they spent on Jadon Sancho. A player I'm not sure they need.
Yeah.
And like, so I mean, Cavani is the least of your worries. That's not to mention Juan Mata, who you're still paying a couple of £100,000 a week to. That's ancient history. But like,
You make a good case, Joe.
I think he's obviously such a presence and such a player. But the dynamic he has created now, if we take Fred and McTominay, they're still stuck with Fred and McTominay as the two in the big games. I don't think he will trust Pogba there. You've
And
got
yesterday seemed
Rashford.
to imply that that's right, in that they were overrun in midfield.
On the
I
evidence of
didn't see the
yesterday,
game now, but
Wolves should have killed him, Johnny. Pogba doesn't sense danger there. So on the evidence of yesterday, you've Fred and McTominay in the bigger games. And then you've got Rashford maybe wants a spot there on the left. Pogba wants a spot there. Fernandes starts. Greenwood, you kind of have to accommodate now if you want to accelerate his development. You've got Jadon Sancho, and you have to play Ronaldo. And so Cavani, you're not even getting a look in. And then, in fact, we might take the number 7 jersey off you. It'd be interesting to see how that plays. So, on the one hand, I accept why they did it, but like, it's almost like they did it without thinking, how's this all going to work? I will figure that out. Just get him in. Get him in. And now they're actually left with the pieces.
He is going to be on the wane. I think that's one thing. Like, whatever he is at now, he's going to be slightly slowing down. I was lucky enough to see Ibrahimovic when he played against Shamrock Rovers at, 38 or 39, and he was still a physical specimen. But in terms of Ronaldo's work off the ball, that will be an issue, particularly in the big games. He's not going to be able to contribute much. I never saw him going to Man City. I didn't think Guardiola had signed him, but maybe it was maybe it was something that spooked Manchester United. But you know, part of me just can't wait to see him playing. You know,
don't get me wrong. I can't wait to watch it all.
Head against the heart a bit, like, because I mean, I'm not a Man United fan, but I mean, if you're a football fan, it's just a remarkable thing to see Ronaldo back in Man United after all these years, and what it might do to their title challenge if such exists. Like, I didn't see the game yesterday, but their problem last season was they had far too many games like that where against average enough opposition they didn't play very well, because they're well capable of even beating the best teams on their day, but they just, for whatever reason, like games like that against Southampton, like that's what I would worry about, because they have a very good defence. It's just they seem to be a bit listless at times in these games.
They were worse yesterday than against Southampton. Couldn't keep the ball, couldn't dictate the game, overrun. Adama Traore getting the ball caused them no end of trouble, especially in the first half. Second half they did start to come into it, admittedly. But like, the other thing with Ronaldo, United are not a possession based team. Like, quite often they'll hit the bigger teams on the counter with, you know, moments, as opposed to let's move up the pitch as a unit and feed Ronaldo, who's waiting in the penalty area. Like, I'm not sure Ronaldo wants to chase the ball as a split striker down the channels all day.
And I think he scored, was it 1 goal outside the box last season? So you know, that's where we're at. Obviously,
do you think he takes penalties off Fernandes?
Yeah, that's going to be another interesting one.
Do you think he takes number 7 off Cavani? He could cause hell in there.
Well, Solskjaer, I mean, his management of Pogba is a big deal, but like, it is I think nearly every player will get a lift, but as you say, like, there is that issue of who has to move around in the musical chairs here, you know?
Everyone. That's the interesting point. Everyone has to move a bit.
It could make or break Solskjaer's management there, because if it backfires, he's undermined in the sense that Ferdinand and Fergie were involved, presumably in the actual signing. I think they've been right to give Solskjaer time, but this could backfire. Because Ronaldo's too big of an ego and a personality to be kind of given half an hour here and there. Like, Liverpool-Chelsea was very interesting as well. I only caught the first half of it, but I was fully expecting them to go on and win the game, and apparently they didn't create much at all in the second half.
Yeah, Chelsea kind of just said, right, out you come, Havertz, in you go, Thiago, we're taking a point. And Liverpool, you do feel Liverpool of 2-3 years ago would have forced to go.
Yeah, I do have kind of reservation with Liverpool. I thought the first half they cut them open fairly readily, and I thought Chelsea were in a semblance of control before. Like, what in fairness is a bit of a harsh kind of red card. It was one of them incidents, but I think it's still going to be a fascinating title race. But I think Chelsea probably have stronger credentials than Liverpool under a really, really good manager as well.
You mentioned Shamrock Rovers there and Zlatan. You were at the Rovers Bohs game yesterday. It was
raucous,
lively.
Yeah,
saw some videos on Twitter. Danny Mandroiu taking some, what would you call it? Over the top abuse or par for the course abuse? I mean, I thought it was touching and crossing the line, to be honest. I
was thinking back to when I was a kid going to games, and when you were part of that culture of, you know, shouting abuse or whatever at opposition players, how far would I have gone? Because, you know, that's maybe what you're looking at now, whereas for me it's completely unedified at this stage. Like, the Jody stand is basically where everyone sits now at a Bohs game, and in an ideal world a certain section of fans are maybe behind the goal or wherever, and they create a great atmosphere and all that, but like, when Danny Mandroiu gets the level of abuse that he gets, and maybe you're bringing your daughter to the game, or League of Ireland clubs have spectacularly failed in attracting women to League of Ireland games. Now I think that will change over the next few years with so many women's teams being involved, and like Bohs even had, like, I think they had one of their underage girls teams were like ball girls at one of the games in the Aviva stadiums, for an example. And obviously great news today on the fees and all that, but League of Ireland clubs have failed to attract women to games, which has not been the case with GA and rugby. And something like that, I think, even though part of me kind of half laughs at it, and it's part of the, if you're a professional footballer and you leave a rival club to go to another, you're going to get abuse, simple as that. But Danny Mandroiu said during the week that he more or less talked about how he'd matured and all that. What we saw yesterday suggested that he just hasn't, and he lost his cool. There's obviously videos gone out of something he did in front of the fans. But at the same time, I have sympathy for him, because I don't think he deserved that on a human level. No, nor does she actually.
No, it wasn't great. Richie McCormack, sorry, it's funny. It's so weird in studio. I was chatting here and you weren't on the screen, and now suddenly I see you. Were you at the game?
No, I was here watching the stream at home.
Okay. Philly McMahon also was peacemaker, you were saying, Johnny.
Did you see this, Richie?
Yeah, it's stupid from Mandroiu, to be fair. Like, whatever the abuse that any professional footballer receives on the pitch, as unedifying as it is and as uncomfortable as it might be for some people, at the end of the day, he's a professional footballer, and this is stuff you have to lap up, and you can be a bit riled by it. That's one thing. To throw stuff back at supporters is ridiculous, and that's the level of maturity that essentially saw him. He's an inconsistent and immature player, an immature footballer, and that's the kind of stuff that saw him fall down the pecking order at Dalymount last summer. And I don't think he was missed once he made the move to Shamrock Rovers. He's made more out of it than others have. But yeah, it was silly from him to throw stuff back at supporters.
It was silly, and it was utterly reckless and dangerous. I mean,
yeah.
But I think you're kind of right there. I thought Mandroiu, he had matured a lot as a player. I think he's done well for Rovers this season at times, and he's worked hard off the ball, and Bradley has spoken well of him. But the Philly McMahon incident was, I mean, this was hilarious. I mean, the whole Philly McMahon, like, a lot of League of Ireland fans would have no interest in Gaelic football, but a lot of them would. And I'd say, the likes of Rory O'Connor and his dad, who are big Dubs fans, I'd say they enjoy Philly McMahon being part of. Rory O'Connor, of course, was doing the commentary yesterday. But so Chris Bennion, the Bohs goalkeeping coach, and Stephen Bradley are clearly having words coming off the pitch at half time, and this was a really, really raucous atmosphere. Glenn Cronin, then the assistant manager for Bohs, squares up to Bennion, and Philly McMahon, who the last image I have, I think of a lot of people, is a semi-naked Philly McMahon with a jersey that is barely there anymore in Dublin Mayo and all of that. He comes in as a peacemaker, and then apparently at the end of the game, and I think Richie was on about this on Twitter, the Yes Sir I Can Boogie tune was being sang relentlessly by the Bohs fans, and Philly McMahon, who, bear in mind, regularly plays in front of 82,000 people at Croke Park, in front of 800 people in Dalymount, was videoing the Yes Sir I Can Boogie scenes. He was having so much fun, and the League of Ireland can be a special place at times.
Yeah, he was loving life. The ripping of the jerseys is now the go-to in GA. Like David Moran walking off again, jersey ripped open yesterday. If you're in a scuffle, Richie, now in GA, if you're not ripping a jersey, you're at nothing.
Have you ever tried to act? Well, I'm not saying if you ever tried to rip one of them, but have you ever felt one of those jerseys to actually rip it in half?
Yeah, just doing my Hulk impersonation at times, but otherwise, no.
It's insane. Like I don't know, the strength you would have to have in your upper arms.
Yeah. To
try and reef one of those in half is quite something. But they managed it on Saturday.
One of
the rare highlights of the game, which is, to be fair, shocking.
Did you not? You didn't think it was a good game? No.
I thought once it opened up obviously in extra time, and once the Tyrone goal went in late on, it kind of really jabbed a bit of life into the game. But up until that, Jesus, I thought it was shocking.
Really?
It really was. As a latter stages game in the football championship, like, how many times have we heard, like, Joe, you mentioned it yourself several times, like, you don't really feel that the championship is getting started until we reach like quarterfinals, semi-finals of these things. And for such a poor display for 65 minutes essentially of what we saw on Saturday it was really underwhelming. And like, Mayo would have been looking at that, and I know Kieran McDonald and James Horan were looking on from the upper stand. They would have been licking their lips at that, because I think they would have had the measure of either side that they happened to face in the final. And I think obviously it's Tyrone, but I don't think Tyrone would have any great tricks up their sleeve for Mayo getting into the final.
Interesting. I do make Mayo favourites cautiously, actually, but I take your point.
It's all over.
It wasn't a free-flowing affair, obviously, But that was just the type of game it was, and there's a brilliance about that if you can appreciate Tyrone finding the threshold at which they can almost foul and going right up to that line every time. And every time Kerry player was in possession, hand went in and Kerry player was halted, and you're thinking, oh, it's on the cusp of a free, and then they take their hand out, and so many turnovers. I think there were 30 plus Kerry turnovers. So I take your point on the free flowing aspect, Rich. I enjoyed it just because of the drama and the sense that, one, the ambush was on, and then obviously it was pretty dramatic right the way through and pretty close right the way through. But free flowing affair, it certainly wasn't. I give you that.
Like Kerry, I thought Kerry let themselves down tactically. Like, how many times did they run into a blind alley? In trying to almost over elaborately find a goal. Like, obviously goals had been their go-to throughout the league and the championship, and they'd scored them at will. But they just kept running down blind alleys as if unaware that they were suddenly up against better defenders than they had been throughout the course of the summer. And that, from a Kerry point of view, has got to be superbly frustrating, because, you know, on paper they're a better team, and then you throw into the mix the gamesmanship to a degree that Tyrone must have engaged in getting the deferrals of the match. Like, it's a massive missed opportunity from a Kerry perspective, and Peter Keane would be kicking himself.
Yeah. No, it was very strange. They were so narrow. They allowed themselves to be clogged up. I mean, Dublin play against this type of defence all the time. You get chalk on your boots, you get people out wide, you just make the pitch as big as possible and you go from there. Whereas they almost were panicky and nervy, and men on the ball running into 2 and 3 Tyrone players. It was very strange.
Or just take point scoring opportunities, like, because there were so many. There were so many. They were trying to essentially find as many goals as they possibly could. When further out the field, there was probably a point to be had. Keep those ticking over, and you're keeping Tyrone at arm's length. Yeah,
Tyrone were brilliant in their own way, you would have to say. So, in fairness, it was a proper ambush. We'll talk to Colm Kavanagh and Billy Joe Padden after 8 o'clock. We're talking Paralympics after 8 as well, which is where you're starting the news round, Rich, with thanks to Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. We had gold yesterday, silver today.
Yeah, Nicole Turner becoming Ireland's 4th medalist of the 2020 Paralympic Games. The Portarlington swimmer clocked a new personal best of 36.3 seconds to claim silver in the S6 50-metre butterfly. Turner had missed out on bronze as a 14-year-old in Rio, with just over a second separating second from 6th in the race this morning, and she was delighted to make up for that pain of 2016.
Oh, absolutely, and I suppose, like, Rio was half a second away from a bronze medal. Like, that did hurt. And then World Championships, getting on the podium, it did give me a real taste of what the Paralympics are going to be like. But even since then, we've had new girls in the category. So, to be honest, coming into Rio, I thought it would be an absolute fight to get on the podium, but to come out with silver, I'm still shocked.
And apparently that's not false humility. Even those around her thought she would do well to get a bronze. So to get a silver is a major bonus. There were other swimmers in action. Roisin Nireen is swimming basically every day I turn on the TV.
Yeah, she is, and reaching finals almost every day as well. She finished 6th in the S13 SM 200 metre individual medley today. That her 4th final out of 5 events. Just incredible stuff from the 16-year-old Limerick swimmer. Well, Barry McClement set a 3rd personal best in 2 separate events with his time of 1 minute 6.31 seconds, seeing him qualify for the final of the S9 100 metre backstroke. He finished 7th in that final. And in the shooting, Philip Eaglesham set a new personal best in the SH2 round 4 qualifiers, while in archery, Meath's Kerry Leonard bowed out of the individual compound open in the last 16. That was in her first Paralympic appearance.
We'll be talking more about that at 8 o'clock. Now, Johnny referenced the equal pay story.
Yeah, the FAI confirming today that the senior women's and men's international sides are to be paid equally. Captains Katie McCabe and Seamus Coleman were both involved in brokering the deal, which sees the men take a pay cut. The FAI are going to make up the shortfall to bring parity to how the men's and women's teams are compensated. We'll hear from Coleman in a second, but first, Katie McCabe says it's a momentous day for football in the country.
I think it's definitely a day that will go down in the history books. It's absolutely massive for football in Ireland, but obviously not just football itself, but women's football in particular. I think it shows that now in the modern game that we can have equality, and I'm just really, really happy we can be part of this day.
I spoke to the senior players over the last while, and we had conversations about it. And listen, it's a good day for the FAI. It's a good day for the men's. It's a good day for the women. So we're all delighted with it, and I hope it gives everyone a better quality when they come away now playing for their country. There's a lot more happiness, and they don't feel, I suppose, that they're a step behind the men when it shouldn't be the case.
Yeah, no-brainer decision here, Johnny. Men were on 2,500 per match. The women's team were on 500 per match. So men taking a small cut is allowed equal amount to be found.
Yeah, the FAI, maybe so much of the stories about the FAI are negative, but deserve credit here, I think. And I think women's sport is just going one way, and that's up. And I think this is further progress as well. I think we'll see a very different picture in 10 or 20 years' time, where this will be, there'll be more and more equality, and it's great to see.
So James Talbot then, Richie?
Yeah, he's been called into the Republic of Ireland squad, replacing Mark Travers ahead of the World Cup qualifiers with Portugal, Azerbaijan and Serbia. The Bournemouth keeper misses out through an illness. Meanwhile, tickets for next week's home games will go on sale tonight at 11 p.m. 25,000 Ireland fans will be allowed to attend the games with Azerbaijan and Serbia at the Aviva Stadium.
This is going to be interesting now, because the tickets go on sale, and then we've the Portugal game kind of out of the qualifications. Like, realistically, so I wonder how tickets will sell. This is the first...
quickly. I would think very quickly.
Yeah. There hasn't been a home game in nearly 2 years. Whatever about the quality of the team.
And you're only talking
there hasn't been
25,000.
Yeah, I'd hope, because it's going to be... And I know Rich will be singing from the same hymn sheet with Stephen Kenny, and we all obviously are, really, but it'll be interesting to see what vibe there is among the fans with this team on Saturday, because they just haven't seen them. They haven't... And a lot of these players... Some of these players have barely played in front of a crowd for Ireland, and we've so many question marks regarding the team and so on and so forth. But the Talbot news is great, Richie. I'm really delighted for him. He's a terrific goalkeeper.
Yeah, comfortably the best goalkeeper in the league, and kind of deserving of the call-up. I know Dan mentioned as well, people are asking about Darren Randolph. I think Randolph is trying to get a move away from West Ham, which is obviously scuppered his being called into the squad. Allied to that, it's going to be Bazunu or Kelleher starting. There's no point in bringing in a Randolph to act as number 3. This is just perfect experience for Talbot, and he's more than deserving of it.
No, I suspect if Bazunu and Kelleher were injured, Randolph would come in, but as you said, he's trying to organise a move away from West Ham at the moment. And speaking of moves, so transfer deadline day tomorrow.
Yeah, and loads of Irish players on the move, as you might imagine. Conor Harahan has joined Sheffield United on loan for the rest of this season. The 30-year-old has just entered the final year of his Aston Villa contract, but has fallen down the pecking order at the Premier League club. Harahan helped Swansea reach the Championship playoff final last season after spending the second half of the campaign on loan at the Liberty. Meanwhile, Robbie Brady has been linked with a move to Turkish Super League side Gaziantep. The winger has been without a club following his release by Burnley at the end of last season. And Charlton are rumoured to be close to taking Harry Arter on loan from Nottingham Forest.
Yeah, Arter could do with a spell somewhere and it really working out for him. He's had a few moves which haven't quite worked now. Owen says, lads, Donny van de Beek is better than Fred and McTominay. He doesn't even get a mention. Yeah, it's funny. A forgotten man. It's a bit like what last week when Phil Jones really blew up because Rio Ferdinand decided to stick a knife in his back in a massive way. You don't even think, where's Phil Jones? Yeah. It's been a while since I've thought, where's Donny van de Beek?
Yeah, it's a fair point. It's interesting one on the transfers. Robbie Brady being linked to move to Turkey. Cyrus Christie's linked with the move to some
Bologna.
Yeah, Italy. It is a thing, Richie, that the really interesting stuff on Twitter today. I forget, it was a sports law guy down in the UCC, and I apologise for not knowing his name, but he was talking about Ireland exports more young footballers essentially than anyone.
Yeah. And
but now with Brexit and all that, and it's just becoming a thing that some Irish players are just going to different places now. Would Turkey be interesting if he badly needs a club, obviously.
Brady's still young. He's only 30, had one bad injury.
29.
And 29. 29-year-old Robbie Brady available on a free. It's amazing. He's we're into the season now and there haven't been any nibbles.
It's his wages. He joined Burnley for 15 million I think it was, or 12 million from Hull, and he would have been on I think 35 grand or thereabouts a week. There aren't too many clubs willing to take a punt on a 29-year-old on that kind of money. And you would imagine that he's unwilling really to he sees his own worth, and he's entitled to see that as well and say that he's worth that money. But there aren't too many clubs who'd be willing to invest in that at the moment, because you can just see yourself from the moves that have happened outside of the freakish Celtic Tiger holiday homes in Bulgaria kind of ones like Ronaldo. The rest of the market is pretty stagnant. It really, really is. There's almost barely anything happening.
Yeah, what with the pandemic and all that as well, but it's interesting. Richard, all these midfielders you're mentioning, Irish midfielders, Malumbi's getting a move. Arthur, you're talking about Brady and Horahan. And Stephen Kenny has to pick 3 players from these lads. A lot of them who aren't really even playing at the moment. Which anyway, that's where we're at.
That's a different story. It's going to be a story the next 10 days. Don't you worry. You'll
confident about the next 2 games?
No,
hopeful?
You couldn't be. Hopeful, not confident.
I'd take 2 wins.
Oh, I think 4 points would probably be
4 points be off the charts. We're
about
16-1 to win in Portugal. I was just looking at.
Sorry, I'm just counting Portugal. We've 3 games.
Yeah, sorry, you take 4 from the 3 games.
If the performance is okay in the draw against Serbia and they don't get whacked in Portugal and they beat Azerbaijan with a bit of promise, then there's a good 4 points and there's a bad 4 points.
Yeah, I'd agree that, because I think this campaign is more about the Euros than the World Cup in some respects, and getting the likes of Troy Parrott and Adam Ida and these young players game time at international level, because ultimately I think we're not looking at Qatar really.
Well, it's about Kenny as well getting a new contract.
Yeah, but that's almost like the elephant in the room, because it's like, A, we want to build it for the Euros, but B, I want to be there for it.
Yeah. Fellas, we are way out of time. Thanks so much. Johnny Ward on OTB AM tomorrow morning.
Yeah, I might just sleep on the floor of the office like Principal Skinner.
There's
just because what's the point going home now? I've actually done that in the past. Back in the old days when we used to be able to party as a young kid, if you're working on the early shift, if you're in town, just go into the office and sure, next thing the CEO of the company comes in and you're like half naked on the couch, and maybe that's why I never got a promotion. Although there are other reasons.
No kidding. Richie McCormack, who I don't think has slept in the office, but who knows? Hello.
Not in that one.
Okay.
No.
His office is his bedroom now, though.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
No, what I did once upon a time, I went to a gig, was presenting the breakfast show the next morning, and did have to sleep in the couch in reception in a radio station. So it has been done. It has been done.
Rock and roll life that I've never led. Richie, thank you.
Nice one.
Johnny Ward, thank you. And if you want more Ronaldo business, by the way, Enda Call's written a piece about his return on the OTB Sports website. We'll be talking about that with Pat Nevin in just a few minutes as well.
The News Round on Off the Ball.
With Gillette. Put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.